Good evening. It is 9:59 p.m. I don't know if I've got anything working here. Tell me if you can see me and hear me when you join. That would be great, because I've got my monitor from YouTube Studios giving me the business here. Might not be working. Yeah, let me know. Oh, it looks like it's working now. Great, thanks. Thanks, YouTube. Good evening to you. I'll start it over since now I can see that it's working. It is Saturday, September 28th at 9:59 p.m., quite a bit later than the normal post-game time, since I was in person in Ross-Ade, as many of you were. Another great crowd. Another great crowd of Purdue fans. Nebraska travels well. They were there. Nebraska fans were, I don't want to say fantastic, but they were not bad around me. Not much. They weren't bad at AJ's after the game. In fact, Adam had a great story how great they were to him. So I got no complaints about the crowd. I'm amazed at Purdue's fans, and so is Coach Walters. His quote was, in speaking of the Purdue family, I let them down. I've let them down the last few weeks. He's right. He's right. He and his team have let the Purdue fans and family down. I wish I could say something different, but they keep coming. Purdue fans keep coming. The enthusiasm has gone down quite a bit. That was palpable before the game. So you compare them side by side. Pre-game Notre Dame, pre-game Nebraska. Obviously, there's a little difference because it's not a noon kickoff. So. The Notre Dame game was a 3:30 kickoff, so there was some time to get wound up a little bit, but it felt different. Fair. Purdue fans were fair. They showed up still, just weren't quite as enthusiastic. So I'd say cautiously optimistic, cautiously realistic, whatever you wanted to call it, before the game. And I'm going to talk a lot about what I saw and some of the things to really like and some of the things I really dislike. I don't know if there's much to like in this one. All right. Thanks to my hosts for our post-game festivities today, AJ's. And I literally, so I almost posted this on Twitter, and I didn't do it because I recorded it in anger. But I said, you know what I like to do? After Hudson Card has thrown a pick six and Purdue's down 21-3, I like to head to AJ's, and then when I get to the fire station, turn left and go inside and have a bite to eat. And I literally did it. I don't bail on games very often, but I literally said to my wife, she was hoping she'd be the good luck charm because she doesn't get to go to a lot of games. She didn't want full season tickets anymore. A good luck charm's not going to get it done. But yeah, so I headed toward AJ's and I had a meal afterwards after Hud threw that pick six. Like that, I said, let's see how the offense does this possession, and then we can make our decision. I literally said, I'm done. I just left the stadium, sadly, left my family to their own devices. My dad and wife and son, they all caught up with me a little bit. I sent them a text, said, see you at AJ's. Met with my old buddies, some really good friends that I hung out with Purdue. That's what homecoming's about. Been 25 years since I'd seen some of these people. It's pretty wild. And we all hung out at AJ's afterwards. And I wore this t-shirt, by the way. So I'm like a company man. Not only did I go to AJ's, then I also wore this Home Field Apparel shirt. And if you head to homefieldapparel.com right now and you put a bunch of stuff in your cart and then you enter Boiled 25, you get 15% off. Somebody asked, why don't you get 25% off when you enter Boiled 25? Well, I don't decide that. The sponsor decides that. They decide what they're going to give, the discount they're going to give, and I think 15 is pretty good. I wish it was 25, though. I'm with you, but I can't decide that. But t-shirt's pretty kick-ass. I think you'll agree. Purdue band script, kind of a fitting logo today. Homecoming, the alumni band was there, and here's some facts. Every year when you're at Purdue during homecoming, you're gonna see a massive band, and they're talented and they sound great. They were really loud. Good job, band. Good job, alumni band. And you're going to see the most terrifying crew of characters in the form of old-timey Purdue Pete's. People think Purdue Pete's scary, the current Purdue Pete. go to homecoming and see the old-timey Purdue Petes before you make that decision, because it is nightmare fuel. Those Petes are really scary. I mean, you look at some of them. I know technology wasn't there for these masks to be mass produced, but man, some of those paper mache masks, pretty frightening. Alumni cheerleaders were great as well. I'm telling you, it was a great crowd, and Purdue showed out as they do, as we do, whatever you want to say. The atmosphere was good. In my section, I was bringing the sarcasm early. I just, after doing what I did with you guys on Friday afternoon, reading through all those lousy stats, I was not feeling great about the game, so that didn't really help me. And so I was like, well, if they show anything that's going to be positive, and they did show some things that were positive. What is positive for Purdue football right now? 0-0 at the end of the first quarter. That's a positive. And that's a positive because we've seen Purdue, go down 14-0. We've seen Purdue look, just take opportunities and urinate all over them. I think Purdue wasn't down 14-0. Were they down 14-0 in the second quarter last week? And then before they scored, something like that. Feels like this is a broken record, but today was a little bit different because, Nebraska had some momentum. Actually, they're coming off that choke at versus Illinois. So I think they wanted to beat Purdue pretty badly. I think they were motivated. Again, we talked about that, but Purdue did a good job keeping them at bay. So what was the problem today? If we're going to put it into a package, tie it with a bow, what's the problem? First problem, penalties. Purdue had 13 penalties for 165 yards. And the really wild thing is most of those penalties came before the fourth quarter. If I'm thinking correctly, I think they had close to 130 yards of penalties in the first three quarters, and maybe close. It may have been like 127 yards in penalties in the first half, if I'm thinking correctly. I may be wrong, but it's something like that, and it was atrocious. And here's the wild thing, boys and girls, and here's the thing. If you want to be upset about things in the Purdue football world, you have a coach that's a former defensive back who's a defensive guru who has defensive backs that do not ever turn around to find the ball. Why in the hell is that still happening? Why can't these coaches see these talented guys and say, hey guys, whoa, turn around and find the ball? It's that simple. Purdue DBs kept doing that. They were stride for stride with the Nebraska wide receivers. They were right there. They were in good position to make the play, but they never turn around and find the ball. And as a result, they get there early and they wouldn't be able to play the ball. Now, if you turn around and find the ball, young defensive backs, my young male friends who are playing the game, if you turn around and find the ball, you can make a play on the ball, not only to knock it away, but to catch it. You can make the interception. If you never turn around and find it, the odds of you having a ball fall right into your hands and making that interception are pretty long. So there's one thing. You could say 13 penalties for 165 yards lost is important. I think you could say that. You could also say 31 rushes for just 50 yards is a pretty telling stat. I think you could say that. You could say your third pick six in 3 games is a telling stat. These are all things that you could say, things aren't so good. Now, with our eyes, here's what we can see, too. We can see that this is an offense that is struggling mightily to move the ball up and down the field. I believe, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, I believe they did it again where they only got the ball past the 50, twice in the first half. Am I right about that? They missed a field goal. Nope, I'm wrong. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, does it? So you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't care. But getting a rhythm, getting a drive, putting a drive together is a problem for this offense. And how much of a problem is it? Okay, I said this on Friday. Purdue was last in the Big Ten in first downs per game with 15 per game. And guess what they did? Had 12. They had fewer first downs in this game than their average, which has them at 18th in the league. I haven't even gotten to any of the stats yet, really, the hard stats of the game. I'm just telling you, like, the overarching themes that they really tell you all you need to know, though, right? So you have 165 yards in penalties, 224 yards of total offense. And for much of the game, penalties outweighed offense. And the only reason offense took over penalties in yardage was because I think Nebraska really called off the dogs in Purdue's last drive. I think that's it. We could stop the podcast there. We could stop the postgame there, but we're not going to do that because champions do more. They finish. Let's go through and talk about the 28-10 loss by your Boilermakers on homecoming Saturday this 2024 season. Purdue, of course, drops to 1-3 on the season. Their lone win versus the FCS foe, Indiana State. Hudson Carver finishes the day. Not a bad day if you look at just the percentage, 18-25. Not bad, 174 yards passing. A big pick six, but he could not move the offense. Was it his fault? I don't think so. I think the offensive play calling is tremendously bad. Like, generationally bad offensive play calling. This feels awful. A couple of my friends say this is the worst Purdue game they've been to in a long time. Others said this could be the worst Purdue football or offensive performance I've seen as a fan. It's up there. If it's not the worst, it's up there. Maccabee and Love both showed a bit of a pulse, but were really kind of hampered, again, by the uninventive play calling. It seemed like when they got the ball, generally they were going up the gut at Nebraska. And Nebraska has some dudes up front. They've got big number 0 who weighs at least 750 pounds. That's an exaggeration. He's a big boy. They got some guys that can hold down the place. And then they have some specimens on top of that, some guys that look like future pros. Like I thought they would, they've got guys that look like future pros. But I'll tell you what. Nyland Green, the Georgia transfer to Purdue, big number 2 on the outside, the cornerback. It's his first game playing in a Purdue uniform. Was in position all day long to make the play at corner, and to say he was rusty is an understatement because he is one of the guys who was the biggest culprit of getting these pass interference, these repetitive pass interference calls where Purdue would do their job, the defense would do their job, and then a PI would come in. Were all of them legit? Boy, they looked pretty legit to me. I'll be real honest. There were some bad calls today, but that was pretty bad. I'll tell you one thing that bothers me about Big Ten officials. The lack of consistency always pisses me off. And there was a good stanza where the refs were throwing flags almost every play in the second, third quarter, right in their third quarter. And then Nebraska broke off a run. Nebraska's play calling, by the way, looks pretty inventive and pretty clean and pretty fresh. They were doing some things to get their speedy guys out on the outside with the ball. Purdue did a better job kind of containing Nebraska, but part of that was because Raiola refused to, they didn't run the option. They didn't run the read option. They didn't run this traditional option, which could have gashed Purdue again. One good thing to see, if you want to look at some progress, was that Purdue brought up Thieneman closer to the line where he's playing pretty much a traditional linebacker role. That was neat to see, and it put him in the position where he can make more plays. Let's see, how many tackles did he have? Second on the team with 9, 6 solo tackles. Joseph Jefferson, who was playing the deep safety, had 7 solo, 9 tackles as well. Winston Berglund had a sack. That's great. Good to see. And he was doing that probably spelling, if I'm thinking correctly, Berglund was taking the place for Jenkins, who went out with a shoulder injury. According to Walters, he'll be okay. By the way, this epidemic of defensive backs not turning around to find the ball. I'm watching Illinois do the same shit. And many of these Illinois DBs, they probably were also coached by Walters at one point or another. And they called pass interference. What do you know? That's what happens when a defensive back does not turn around and find the ball. Mercy. Yeah, there were a couple boneheaded plays, but I'm not going to really dig into the granular stuff. Let's just look through this. Max Clare had a pretty decent day, had 3 receptions for 40 yards. Tibbs, 5 receptions, 46 yards. There's no separation by the receivers, though. And again, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to thoroughly believe that the issues they're having, Shamar Rigby, friend of his mom's a friend of the website, had a catch in 7 yards. That's awesome. A lot of guys with 1 catch. But the thing I'm seeing is the receivers are not getting space. They're not getting space between them and the defensive back. I don't blame these guys. The routes that are being called, if you watch the tape of this one, I would challenge you, because I'm going to do the same thing. Just watch the routes that are being called. I'm seeing many times where you've got 7-yard outs, like a bunch of them run at the same time. But part of the reason they have to run these quick routes is because the offensive line can't hold their block. And the other thing is Card doesn't feel the pressure of the pocket collapsing. He can't step up in the pocket. There's no place to go forward. I will give him that. He's not running the ball because there's not much space in the middle. They're not ever rolling him out, ever. The coaches are not rolling him out, not putting him in a position where he can make a pass on the run, maybe because they don't think he can. But the thing about rolling him out is it gives you at least options of things you can do. And there are not many options. And these plays seem to be almost predicated on one guy does one thing. And if that doesn't happen, the play's busted. It's not going to work. Not going to work. Let's see. Yeah, disheartening thing was the 21 points in the fourth quarter. It was 7-3 in the third at the end of the third quarter. Purdue loses 28-10. That's disheartening. The whole thing's disheartening. And I love the fact, if you watch the post game again, I love the fact that Coach Walters is taking his medicine and saying, I hate losing. I mean, you guys got to understand, I hate losing. I'm programmed to go in and work, get things done this week, try to do things better. I love that. But the fact that I don't think he has an answer. I mean, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Gosh, there's a lot of comments. I appreciate all you who are watching live. Like me, you are also frustrated, I assume. Chris Harder, he's the first here. And I think he's saying poop. That's the nice way to put it. Jackson Clark says, like and subscribe. Thank you, Jackson. Thank you. Thank you for advertising for us. Greg McManus says, hello, sad hello. Yeah. I'm sorry you have to deal with this week, Greg. But I got to tell you, the Alabama fans that I dealt with, I'm watching Alabama play at the same time. But the Nebraska fans that I dealt with, they were pretty pleasant. They don't know how to say thank you when you hold the door, which is funny because I think a lot of people think, guys that are raised out in the country are well-mannered. And not I know Lincoln is a city and Nebraska is in that city. I've been on campus but I held the door at AJ's for throngs of Nebraska fans and not a damn one of them said thanks. Purdue fans, you did. You passed the test. Your mom's raised you well. MHC says, anyone fired yet? Damn it, no. Mark Garrity says, group therapy. We're all here for it. IC says, good evening. Hope you're doing well. I am. I hope you are well as well. Ultimate Boiler says, ugh. Adam P. I met Adam P. I met Adam at AJ's today. That was awesome. Good to meet you, Adam. I think that's, if I'm recalling correctly, good to meet you. Who's more upset right now, Purdue fans or Georgia? Yeah. Well, Purdue's fall wasn't very far. I mean, I think we all raised our expectations this summer. Maybe you guys did it because of me talking to you, and I apologize. I'm not going to apologize for raising expectations. I think it's a good thing to say we have a little bit of optimism. But right now, Alabama is absolutely dump trucking Alabama is dump trucking Georgia. Sorry, tough to do two things at once. Tough to do one thing at once for me. But Georgia just scored. It's now 30-15. If you've got an eye on that, or if you don't. Nolan Hostetler says, if they're going to fire anyone, make Painter the highest paid coach at Purdue. Yeah, I tend to agree. Painter deserves that. I don't think Painter cares about that. I get the idea he doesn't care about that idea at all. And I think I think the university, whether we know it or not, is setting up Painter with it exactly what he wants. That's what my gut tells me. I could be wrong. But what we know publicly, it seems like he's underpaid, and I think it's a fair presumption. Steve Azano says, good evening, Sir Dowd. I love the formality. Defense looked better today. I agree. We're going to talk about one of the problems, why the dike busted there. Enjoyed seeing Thieneman closer to the line. Same here. Can't say as much about the changes in and I don't see. So here's the thing. Defense did their job, right? We can say they really were doing their job, but offense isn't putting together full drives, not in the first half, not in the second half, right? They had, like I said, am I counting 3 drives, 3 real drives? Maybe 4 that were significant, meaning let's say a 40-yard drive is a significant drive. I think that's fair. But when you have a 40-yard drive, what you're doing is you're staying on the field longer and you're giving the defense a chance to rest. Well, the defense failed at the end of the game, right? They couldn't hold on any longer. They couldn't do it. So you can't really blame them. But what you can blame the defense for, and here's the rub, right? We can sing the praises of the defense, but the amount of penalties, guys and girls, I mean, just incredible. And that, to me, it shows the lack of discipline this team has, the lack of understanding where they're supposed to be, the lack of technique of how they're supposed to do things, specifically defensive backs not doing their job. Hello. TBD says hi. She's right there. Brian T says, so Purdue has officially snatched the bottom of the Big Ten from Nebraska. How does Jay Money feel about that? He'll talk about that on the Handsome Hour on Monday, I'm sure. I don't ever I know Nebraska wasn't great and didn't go to bowl games for years. I understand that, but I don't think of them as the bottom of the league. I don't. But it's pretty easy to see who is the worst team in the league right now. Craig Manna says, I couldn't listen to anything until middle of the fourth because I was officiating lacrosse. Tim and Mark sounded sad and frustrated. Herman was mystified by the play calling. Yeah, and there's a guy, somebody said this during the Handsome Hour. This would be absolutely unprecedented and impossible, but it's kind of fun to pretend. If Purdue were to make a change to the offense, they could have Mark Herman come and call plays. The problem is and if you've played football, you understand this, the way plays are worded is a big problem right now because Purdue's everybody who knows the play calling, those guys who know the way things are called, the way they're named, none of them are play callers other than Harrell. They just aren't. The only other play caller called plays at the high school level. I think I said this the other day. I don't think anybody's defied me yet. I'd like to hear that I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm going to. La Vida Bonita says, IU and Rutgers atop the Big Ten, just as we all predicted exactly. Ultimate Boiler says, we went 2 quarters without losing. That's pretty cool. 2 quarters without losing. Can we say, you mean like the game, like nothing happened after 2 quarters? Yeah. 2 quarters without losing, 2 quarters without scoring. Oh, Mark Garrity says it felt like Purdue kicking the field goal on the 4th and 1 was a turning point. Yeah, I can understand you thinking that feels like the turning point. I think you have to take the points just because obviously hard to come by, but I get it. Yeah, I'd like to go back and watch the tape. That's what Walter says. That's another thing that another ex-Purdue coach used to say. I got to watch the tape, and Walter says that a lot in the press conference. I think he wants to find the positive, and he knows the way he feels after the press conference. I understand that sentiment, but I need to go back and watch the tape too. Specifically, I need to watch that midway through the 3rd quarter into the 4th, and how the game just completely gets turned over. A lot to watch. Mark Garrity says, when Nebraska scored the 2nd touchdown, the stadium started clearing out. Yeah, it did. It did. I can tell you though, really the straw that broke the camel's back was the one that broke mine. And I don't leave a lot of games early, but I was just like, man, I mean, you're looking for a pulse. You're looking for something positive, and we get a pick 6. Worst possible damn thing you can have. Jackson Clark says, turned it off after 25-yard rushing TD for the first time since Hazel. Yeah, that was the one by 17 on Nebraska who taunted the Purdue defensive back, right? Or is that a pass? I think that's the one, though. And then this is the inconsistency of Big Ten officials that bothered me. They were so involved in the game, but they didn't call that taunting penalty. Because I think he waved at the Purdue defensive back, 17 did. And he's a freshman. Nebraska fan said he's a freshman, and he's learning. I don't give a damn what he is. They got a lot of guys there that, well, doesn't matter. Purdue lost. Doesn't matter. Q Turner said, Bruss stayed up to vent my frustrations. Glad you're here, Q. Mark Garrity said, I think Card is being heavily influenced by Harrell. He didn't play this bad last year. Yeah, it feels like he's regressed. And I don't know if you can say regressed, just has gotten worse. Whatever we want to say. Card does not look good. And here's the thing. You start saying things like this. Maybe you don't, but here's what I say. Okay, offense can't move the ball. Offense can't score, right? Something's very bad with play calling. Something's very bad with the scheme on offense. Something's very bad with the offensive line is struggling, right? You're not going to fire Harrell. I just don't think they can do it because there's nobody there to call plays. So what do? Do you sit there and keep doing the same things? Say, yeah, we're going to lose the rest of the games all year, by scoring a field goal and a touchdown or just barely moving the ball across the 50-yard line? Or do you say, we have to try something? And this is where Hudson Card's in the way. And this is a problem because the easiest change to make on offense is always the quarterback, right? Because you're like, let's give something a try. Give somebody a try. Do you give Ryan Brown a try? Gosh, listen, I am aware, and I know some of you jumped down my throat saying I should have never had the audacity to blame Hudson Card for anything that happens. But that is another pick six, guys and girls. Okay. 2 of those pick sixes are really, really bad by Hudson Cards. One of them you could say, okay, very, very unlucky bounces. But you have to do something, right? You can't just keep doing the same garbage and think you're going to make big changes. The defense tried to change things up, and there were results. I'd say positive results. You cannot continue to run this offense and expect things to change. DRC says Coach Walters has been a disappointment since day one. I think so. Let's look through this whole thing. Let's be somewhat fair. Purdue won 4 games last year. And we can say we were disappointed because maybe you had high expectations because you thought Babinski hires well, and this is the guy. But saying he's a disappointment from day one isn't really fair because Purdue did not look like dog shit every game last year. They didn't break through last year, right? They didn't beat any of the teams that you're like, okay, man, that's the one that, you know, there's your first big win. And they're not going to do that this year. I got bad news for everybody. They're not going to have a breakthrough win this year. If they have a breakthrough win this year, I will be absolutely stunned. Now, will they win another game or two? They can. They can. Is it likely? It's becoming less likely as you watch this offense. And as you watch the defense make stupid decisions, stupid plays. Jackson Clark says, how does Harrell still have a job? He shouldn't have been hired. Can't go back in time. The Noodle says, that really old Pete is like something out of a Chucky movie. Yeah, it's really scary. But it's not just one. There's like 3 of them that are terrifying. And I should have maybe that could have been a good picture. That would have been better. One of those terrifying pictures of all the old Petes together. Yeah. Because I had kind of a nightmare theme going after the Friday post. Yeah. But okay, so if you want to read my title on my thumbnail, it says no offense, but not no offense, but. So the whole thing is no offense, but meaning, okay, don't mean to hurt your feelings here, but you guys are really lousy at football. Greg Manis says they got so excited they could make Pete out of paper mache that they didn't consider if they should. Yeah, no kidding. Brian T says, what's the record for consecutive games with a pick six? This is a good question. My brother asked this earlier. We were in a text thread and somebody will give us that answer. I bet we'll hear that on Golden Black. Maybe not. Maybe they don't want to do that, but maybe they will. Maybe they'll give us that answer. I bet we're getting close to the record. Remember though, and he brought this point up, my brother brought this point up, that remember Breeze used to throw a lot of picks and probably threw quite a few pick sixes. I don't think he ever threw 2 games of pick six in a row. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember him doing that, right? He threw pick sixes, and we can remember the famous one versus Ohio State specifically, right? Right before Holy Toledo. That's what Breeze did, though. He made a mess, and then he cleaned it up. Mark Garrity says, I was with the alumni band. Thanks for the shout out. You guys sounded great. You look great. Well done to everybody out there, Mark. I'm always impressed with that. Nice job. I played drums, so I was not a musician. See, can I make that joke? I know it's an old joke, but can I make it since I played drums? I think I can. I really was not a musician, though. That's the funny thing. I did play drums. Adam Beasley says, there's no doubt that Purdue is a basketball school, but man, Purdue fans love college football, and Purdue is our team. Proud of the fans, impressed with the Nebraska fans, too. They always travel well. They were good. Pat Gottschall says, I was glad to see some fight this week. Unfortunately, penalties and mistakes killed us. Agreed. Noodle says, high point today was the 45-yard field goal. Yeah, and it was good. The crowd went nuts, right? After him, the first one, so he had this great stanza in the first half where Nebraska pushes a field goal to the left, and then Purdue pushes one out to the right, and then later nailed the big 45-yarder. Jackson Clark says, he said they don't teach it, but they tell the players the rules. LOL. So I don't know what that's a reference to, which rules. Just the fact that they pass interference rules. I mean, my goodness, everybody should know it. Greg Manis says penalties were bad. Offense needs to be good enough to give hardworking defenders a break. They just ran out of gas. They did. But again, this is the chicken the egg thing, but darn nabbit, those penalties are so damning. All of those pass interference penalties are so damning because those are difference makers on a drive. And so that's my hard time about saying, great job, defense. You guys did awesome. Held the wall up until the fourth quarter because they made so many boneheaded plays. And I think a coach, I can tell you, I've coached a lot of kids playing sports. Penalties and that sort of thing make you more angry than anything because you say, that's stupid play right there. The Well Ministry says, I'm sure we'll bounce back versus Wisconsin. Yeah, sure. Yep, get to go to Madison next week. It'll be fun. Mark Gary says, defense did enough for us to win today. Even with the penalties, we just have zero offense. So that goes, we can keep going back to that point. I'm not going to do it belabor anymore. Boilers 012 says, good evening. Another disappointing day for the Boilers. The penalties are particularly frustrating, especially after the whistle variety, the dumb decision making for an already poor football team. Yeah, you can't afford to do that, right? If you're already got a thin margin for error, you can't afford to do that. Adam Beasley says, I'll push back just a bit on the PI penalties. Okay. Not good, obviously, but man, it kept Nebraska from breaking some long ones, which have killed us, and from gaining some offensive rhythm. Okay, so here's my rub with the thinking there. I think it's fair to say, okay, the PIs kept them from breaking a big one is what your point, right? But this isn't like these defensive backs are just overmatched. This is my whole point about the personnel all over the field, from wide receivers to offensive line to defensive backs. I think the talent's there. I think you've got big time Power 5 talent on the field, all over the field. And I think those cornerbacks and defensive backs show it. Okay. So they're in position to make the play the right way, and their technique sucks. They're not turning around and finding the ball. They weren't to me, it didn't seem like they were just trying to tackle a guy to stop the catch. It seemed to me like they were just trying to stop the ball from getting the receiver, right? They weren't mobbing the guy. Some of them, they were there just barely before, right? So they're in position to make a play. They're just, the way they're playing the ball is not very good. Greg McManus says, after the play, garbage calls are backbreakers. Walt mentioned those in particular. Here they are. Ben Carnahan says, it's amazing to watch Illinois and IU just to see how fundamentally sound they are. God, nothing really special, just doing what they're supposed to do. Yeah, and this is the hard thing, right? Purdue's very down, clearly. Very down. And IU looks really good. IU finishes games exceptionally well, it seems, right? They've done this week after week. The fourth quarter, they're playing their best football while the other teams are wilting. Pretty impressive. Maryland's not a horrible team. I mean, granted, IU's schedule has been set up just wonderfully. Well, it's a great schedule. I got nothing but love for their schedule maker. I would love to have their schedule maker, but we don't have that. Q Turner says, beat out, I'm okay with each pass interference call. Okay, I don't agree with this at all. These DBs are unlike previous DBs. I like their aggressive play. Yeah, I just don't agree with this assessment because I don't think you can do this. I'm telling you, as a coach, there's no way in hell you can say this is okay to have that many pass interferences. If the idea is you're saying you want them to play aggressive and here's the deal. If you're a ball hawk and you're playing the ball, you turn around, find the ball so you can make a play on it. Right? Otherwise, you're just like an athlete out there kind of hoping something good happens. So there's a problem. Let's see. Greg McManus says, let's see. Andy Day says 10. They scored a touchdown. They did, Andy. They scored a touchdown in the fourth quarter. It's not garbage time, but it's close. The game was put away. Greg McManus says, imagine if young Walters had brought in an experienced older coordinator. Just brought in experienced older coordinators. This whole experience could be different. Yeah, it could be. Can't go back in time. But we might see that in the off season. Yeah, I got you, Greg. I see what you're saying. Adam Beasley says, Card deserves some of the blame. He lost all of his confidence, looks terrified in the pocket. Completely agree. I don't know how we can't draw some of that. I've got a lot of comments here, and I'm going to try to read as many as I can, but a lot. I appreciate you guys being here, but man, this is a lot. Let's see. I'm going to jump down a little bit. Greg McManus says 0-0 at the half in 93. Was that with an ND game, rain game? Yeah, I don't even know. I've jumped ahead. Oh, Mark Garrity says apparently last time Purdue was 0-0 at halftime was 93. Okay, there you go. Good factoid there. Okay, so that's the problem with me jumping around because I screw things up. Let's see if I can find Big Yar 00 says the weather held off for us today. This is a great point. As close to a W as we were, or close to a W as we may see. So the point is the weather is the W, and I agree. Yeah, it was. We got a little bit of rain, but the hurricane did not smack us around like it could have. And if you've been in central Indiana the last 2 days, it's been kind of brutal. Thanks to the hurricane. So yeah, that was a blessing. I agree. Huge blessing. It was sunny. It went from being like stifling humidity to smitingly painful sun at times. I was sweating. But I got a little exercise in running to AJ, so it was good. I was frustrated. Jay Wood says the Nebraska fans near me were totally in awe of the pork tenderloin. They had no idea what it was. It's an incredible sandwich, and good for them for being in awe of something that is beautiful and fantastic. Michael JB says, has it been 3 weeks in a row for Card and a pick six? Yes, and I can explain them to you. First, right before the first half versus Notre Dame, Card was falling down. He was trying to just get rid of the ball, and he pushed past a left hand kind of push pass right to the defensive back from Notre Dame, who went right down the sidelines. That was a backbreaker versus Notre Dame. Versus Oregon State, second drive of the game, Card drops back, going to throw it out in the flat to Love. A defensive end from Oregon State gets upfield. He gets in the way between he and Love, and I think he hits the ball off his hand. If he doesn't, it just goes underneath his hand. But then I think he hits it. I think it's deflected. So, but this counts still. And it hits off of Love's ankle or calf, bounces right back to that guy, that defensive end who got upfield, who catches it, runs it in for six. And today, Card drops back in the fourth quarter. Looked like a linebacker was on a back pedal, just kind of positionally. A similar thing that Curtis Painter used to have a problem with, looking through that linebacker. The Nebraska linebacker drops back. It hits him in the numbers. I mean, it looked like a great pass to the Nebraska linebacker who turns around, takes it to the house. 3 in a row. Tripod says, I'm watching Illinois Penn State, and I think we may have undersold how good of a defensive coach Burt is. Yep. He looked pretty good. Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Try to find. Todd Singer says, the call I had a problem with was calling Jefferson for unsportsmanlike conduct. I thought that was not Jefferson. I thought that was the guy who transferred from Colorado. Is that the one where he went over the top of the receiver after the play? I hated that call. And I didn't really want to address that specific thing so I wouldn't sound petty. But I thought that was such garbage. I thought that was a horribly weak call. He didn't hit the guy. He barely stepped over him. I agree. If that's the one you're talking about, that was a horrible call. Horrible call. But I thought it was the other corner, and not the safety. So I apologize. I'm probably wrong. But yeah, I had an awful, awful time with that one. Mingo the Poet said, who are we going to hire? I don't know what you're talking about. Michael JB says, insane penalties. Has to be a record. It's up there. I don't think it's a record. I think we've seen something like this. Matt Garbarino says, Walters has no idea what to do. You can tell he's in over his head. Here's the thing. He tried to change things this week on defense, and the changes were somewhat effective. I will say that, right? But is that a direct, is that like, well, those changes were so good that they stifled Nebraska, or is that Nebraska might not be the most potent offense? Remember, one thing that you're dealing with is Raiola hadn't seen this defense from Purdue. They had watched a lot of tape, I'm sure, and Raiola is a freshman. So him recognizing slight differences might be a little bit difficult for him specifically. So yeah. Jim Garfinkel says, hire Stitz for the rest of the year. We may go down, but it'll be damn fun. Yeah. Bob Stitt supposedly is retired. I don't know why it would be bad to open communication lines for many reasons. We talked about that a little bit this week. Kevin Plummer says, how much trouble is the program in right now? I think quite a bit. I think it's not very good. Brian T says, what would Hudson Card look like under Joe Tiller? I think he'd look pretty good. I think Hudson Card would look like, do you remember so after Orton graduated, Purdue had a quarterback start for 5 games, and I think he was 5-0. They had that dramatic win over Minnesota. Somebody can remember his name. I guarantee in the comments you guys can remember right away because your brains are better than mine. But he was a freshman. And I think similarly, I think Hudson Card, just looking at the way, like his athleticism, solid arm, I think he could be an incredible game manager type of quarterback who does just kind of manages things. If you've got a good offense and a good system that just needs to make plays every now and again, I think he could be very, very good. In this system, it's not a great fit. Mike Major says, put in Ryan Brown, run the triple option. I'm not against that suggestion. Kevin Plummer says, oh, you already said that one. Let's see. I'm going to go to Ed Albanese, the king of all that is gummy bears, gummy worms, gummy rats even, says, spoke to my doc, Ryan. All good. Can't believe you. Don't make a hater now. Spoke to my doc. Can't believe you. What am I missing here, Ed? I apologize. I'm missing something here. But you have another one down here. Someone needs to get fired. Change things now, not later. I am with you. There has to be accountability. And there's not going to be, guys. There's not going to be. So I just don't think that's this management style of Babinski. I don't think he does that. Maniacally Steve says, just here to say hi. Brighter days ahead. No doubt. Basketball's coming. Yes, there's a good meme going around. My buddy sent it to me, Al Brock, about moving. Just we're ready to move on. Some people are done with football. I'm sure of it. Lucky Lizard says, man, I don't want Purdue to lose, but at this point, we have to go scorched earth and call it like it is. Not great, guys. Not very cash money. No, it's not at all. Sam says, not even October and already checked out. IU fans had Notre Dame. IU fans have had Notre Dame historically. Whom do we have? Meaning, does that mean like an alternate team, something to do when things aren't going well? Yeah, no, we don't do that, Purdue. We don't have an alternate team. My brothers and I tried that back in some dark days in the Purdue program history, just to have an extra team to root for. And we bought hats and the whole thing. Like we had our secondary team. And I couldn't stick with it. I'm no good at that. So I don't think Purdue does that. Let's see. Let's see if there's anybody else down here. Check It Out 7 says it's too late now to fire anyone during the off season. Time to make changes. The coaching staff. Mr. Matt DSM. Mr. Matt brings the heat sometimes. Some funny stuff says, I'd take Robert Marv when he was playing on one leg at this point. Robert Marv on one leg, and I know he had some pretty bad things. He made some pretty stupid decisions, made some bad mistakes after he left Purdue. But Robert Marv, the toughness that he played with on one leg was incredible. Like Hudson Card, I think the comparison maybe is that they were both really pretty highly touted quarterbacks out of high school. But man, Marv made things happen. But Marv, I'm telling you, that system was better. That system he was playing in was just better. This offensive system is not it. Sam Elliott says Joey Elliott will win some games for us. Yeah, Joey Elliott, that's a comparable. I think that's a good comparison with Card. Good. I think Hudson is a better athlete than Elliott, though. Elliott's had a better arm, better passer. Anthony Baird says, you're telling me no one else knows the verbiage on coaching staff. The backup QBs should know enough to get through the rest of the year. If Walters wants to save his job, it's the only way. So here's the rub about that statement. So you're talking about making a change at OC right now. The rub is, if no one has come to Coach Walters and said, you better show some production, that's a block in the back, better show some production on the offensive side, or it's going to cost you. Yeah, Brandon Hance, John Reinhardt, that's it. Brandon Hance, not Kirsch. Yep, Brandon Hance, transferred to USC. Very good stuff. That's right, guys, girls, whoever. Yeah, Ketchison says Brandon Hance. Good stuff, guys. That's it. Brandon Hance was that quarterback. I think that's a good comparison. Tell me I'm not wrong, because Brandon Hance was a pretty good athlete who wasn't a great passer. I think Card's a little better passer because he's so much older, right? He's 5 years older than Hans was at that point. Brandon Kirsch might be, but Kirsch, man, boy, he threw some fits though. Card is not that type of guy. Card is a good soldier. He's trying to do everything he can. It just doesn't seem like he can get it done. Hosehead says the dumb penalty turned a stalemate into a rout. Yeah, the penalties really sting. They really hurt. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, and then Hans got benched in favor of Orton. Okay, there you go. Hans was benched in favor of Orton. No, I think Kirsch was benched in favor of Orton, right? I think that's true. I think that's true. So you guys are saying that Hans followed Breeze right away, and that might be true, and that was only a short window. Kirsch was in there too, but I thought Kirsch came in, and then Orton replaced Kirsch. So we have to go back and watch the tape to figure that out. All right. Yeah, my memory plays games with me. Mr. Matt DSM says, "What was the crowd chanting late in the game?" It's a good question. Nebraska crowd chanted some stuff during the game. They had this kind of, that's kind of the way it sounded to me. It wasn't a very good chant. Yeah. Ed Albany says Hans was a punk. He lived at Wiley Hall. And he did not fit. He hated Purdue. Yeah, I know he didn't fit there. I heard that. I think Tiller kind of pointed that way after he left, after he went to USC. And then I think he played 4 years there. I think he didn't start too many games. So Tripod says Hans, Orton, then Kirsch. Had such a hope for Kirsch. But, well, I don't think your order's completely right because Kirsch was sat down in favor of Orton at some point. So the order of them coming in might be correct, but I know that Orton took the job back from Kirsch at one point. And remember, Orton got concussed one time. Orton got concussed and Kirsch took over for him. Was that versus Iowa? And then later, tell me I'm wrong, at Michigan State, Kirsch got concussed and Orton came in and threw a 40-yard touchdown. Cold off the bench, if I remember correctly. Incredible stuff. Seems like ancient history. I was saying that those offenses were just juggernauts compared to what this is. And that wasn't the Drew Brees. Those are the guys that were trying to figure out how to run the offense. And they were absolute beasts compared to what we're watching now. Many of you are old enough to remember that. And it's like, wow, it's a different sport we're watching right now. Gerald Huff says, at least volleyball was great today. Yeah, volleyball's great. I haven't seen that score yet because I have not gotten on Twitter or anything. So that volleyball team's great. They're totally legit. They're road warriors. They rise to the occasion. They go and play anybody, it seems, and they beat them. Do what you're supposed to do. Let's see. Yeah, Greg Mann says it's go big red. Go big red. I don't know if I'm doing it right in the rhythm. It's really stupid sounding. When you're near it, it's really dumb. Yeah, my brother and I were mocking him pretty badly. So very, Sam says Kirsch took over in 2005 and bombed. Painter took over after that and lost, after that lost season. Yeah, these are all running together. I'm not saying you're wrong, but yeah. So Kirsch took the job over after Orton was gone because they tried to give the job to Kirsch, or Tiller messed around with that a little bit when Orton was injured. I know that. Yeah, but that was a solid QB room. Yeah, Mr. Matt DSM guys made naming dudes. Yeah, naming some dudes, but really doing a bad job clearly with my my timeline. No doubt about it. Andy Messmer, who I got to see this evening, says, the highlight of the game for me was watching you troll the Go Big Red chant. You got them to shut up. Yeah. Yeah. Me and my brother. Yeah. They were annoying as hell. And they weren't that's the funny thing. We just didn't want to hear that, right, Andy? We didn't want that in our section. And there were a good amount of Nebraska fans, but we didn't want to hear it. So yeah, kind of drowned them out. It was fun. Used my my big voice for good, not evil. Lucky Lizard says, if we only win one more game, Dowd, what would you want it to be? Okay. So I get the choice of one game to win. The bucket. Easy. That's it. There you go. Easy peasy. Yeah, because that'd be so much fun too. If I had like 9 wins, which is possible, they could definitely have 9 wins at that point. I'm getting mocked by my Purdue fan friends, but watch IU play a game, like really watch it with objective eyes and tell me I'm an idiot. You can tell me I'm an idiot for a lot of things, but I don't think you could tell me I'm an idiot for that one. Yeah, that it is. It's the bucket. If I get a second priority, it's Wisconsin. Just breaking that generational ineptitude would be amazing. And I'm putting the games that I think are like after watching these teams. So if you'd say, I think IU is almost a pipe dream. I think they're really, really good, and they're going to be capping off a season, and their quarterback is not going to be back next year, so it's going to be senior day. You're going to have a lot of stuff against Purdue on that particular day. So I don't think IU is much of a, but I look at Michigan State, Northwestern, maybe Wisconsin as teams that aren't great left on the schedule. Illinois looks good again versus Penn State. I don't know what the score is. They just stripped him. Illinois looks good. Penn State is solid. Penn State is Penn State. The thing about Penn State is you're going to play them. You're going to have the hell beaten out of you like you do when you play Ohio State because of the guys on the team. Oregon is fast all over the field. There's a lot. There's pitfalls everywhere. We knew the schedule was rough. But man, let's see. Yeah, it'd be fun. That'd be really fun if IU was undefeated and you got to beat them. That'd be even more fun. Ed Albany says, okay, so he's going to settle it here. When Orton won the job back, Kirsch got mad. Yeah, he did. He got mad. He was yelling and cursing at fans. I remember that. Tiller benched him for this attitude. Later on, Kirsch said he regretted being difficult. Yeah, I've heard that he was repentant. And he's been publicly that way, and I appreciate that. I mean, I think he's a young, cocky guy. I mean, he was pretty young at that point. Yep, Penn State wins. They beat Illinois, fought hard, but they ran out of gas. So that kind of turnabout is fair play. They took one from Nebraska. This game, they looked good until, third quarter? Penn State beats Illinois 21-7. Yeah, that's a good recounting, though. Yeah, I agree. And Kirsch was, his attitude sucked. And that was one of the things where I said it's hard to root for this guy because he was unlikable at that point. And I'd love to hear. I think that's true. I think he regretted it. It's too bad. He had a lot of tools. So yeah, Pat Gottschall has a great point. Indinia is legit good. I agree. Good. Well done there. Adam P says, do we stand a better chance with recruiting if we do a complete coaching overhaul versus keeping Walters 1 to 2 more years with potential recruits knowing his time will be short? Okay, so here's my big thing on this. Recruiting, the world of recruiting has changed so much. Now, number one, I'm going to disagree with what Anish said last week on the Handsome Hour saying it's not going to have that much of an effect. No, you're going to have an effect. Playing really badly week after week has an effect on recruits. They see it. And the bigger thing than just them seeing it, they may not even care to watch Purdue games because some of these guys, they got other things to do. Busy. The negative recruiting starts happening. So if a guy has it down and he's verbal to Purdue, the other coaches start saying, you see how bad Purdue looks? They're not going to be able to utilize you. That's what's going to happen. So there will be a cost to that. But making this change solely based on recruiting in this era is probably not a wise thing because of the transfer portal and how much that changes everything quickly. If you do a good job in the portal, you can have talent right away and you can rebuild a roster right away. Do I think it's the right way to build a roster? No. And I'll say the other thing is when I said you want to watch out for a bad omen, that is tons of guys heading for the exit at the end of this season, because that will be 3 straight seasons that's happened with Walters at the helm. It's understandable a little bit. First season, absolutely understandable. Second season, you can say, yeah, okay, they're still in transition. Walters getting his guys in place. But a third season, if that happens, if you have that much attrition that way to the portal, that's a bad sign. I think Purdue's got plenty of bad signs right now. Let's be really honest. I'm trying to be as fair as I can here, guys. But they've got tons of bad signs here. Tons of bad signs. Wow, my voice is changing. But yeah, it's rough. Let's see. Any more here? Yeah. I'm going to call it a day, guys. Thanks, guys, girls, thrill seekers. Thanks for hanging out with me for 54 minutes. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you feel a little bit better than you did when you came in. That's the big thing, right? Yeah, I hope you do. And I feel a little bit better than I did when I came in. So you guys provided me with some therapy, if nothing else. So you should feel good about it. It's a team effort. God bless you. Hammer down. Talk to you soon. Better days ahead, regardless of the way you look. There's a bright sunshine coming. All right. Good sunrise coming. Keep your heads up.